Welcome to the Sherborn Advisory Committee meeting. Today is Wednesday, September 24, 2025. I hereby call the Advisory Committee meeting to order at 7:07 p.m. Committee members will state their name as present. Penn?
Penn Young. Present.
Paul?
Paul Pilot, present.
Nora?
Nora Lynch, present.
Divya?
Divya Raghavan Malloy, present.
Stephen Bonder, present. Glad to say that a quorum is present. Jeremy, would you mind putting the agenda on the screen? Thank you. So tonight's agenda includes review and approval of the July 21st, 2025 minutes. The current meeting items include introduction of new committee members, committee organization, election of a chair and a vice chair. Meeting attendance, we'll discuss a bit whether we want to be in person, Zoom, or hybrid. We'll review a schedule for the upcoming year, a preliminary schedule for the upcoming year. Jeremy Marcet is going to do a presentation about his internal, the town's internal budget-making process and discuss some of the fiscal challenges for fiscal 26 and fiscal 27. And then we'll have advisory committee member reports, should there be any. Are there any items to be added to our agenda that were not reasonably anticipated at least 48 hours before this meeting and that require attention before our next meeting?
May I add something to go on to the next meeting's agenda, or is that appropriate later, just to put?
Yeah, why don't we
forward?
touch base on that?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I welcome a motion to accept the agenda as read.
So moved.
Second.
Second. Roll call vote. Penn?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Nora?
Aye.
Divya?
Aye.
And I am I as well. I would ask for a volunteer to take minutes for tonight. Who would be willing to do that? Because you'll just not have to do it at some other date.
I'll do it. I'll do it.
Since the
So,
meeting's recorded, I'll give you access to the recording pen.
oh, thank you. Yeah. So motion to accept agenda, I made that and Paul seconded, correct? Aye.
Yes, for the agenda. Yes, he's just asking for all in.
All right. Thank you, Penn, for willing to do that. I think what we should do first, although this is out of order, is we should open nominations for the chair. Our previous chair is now a member of the select board, and the vice chair, his term, he decided not to renew. So we are currently without a chair and a vice chair. So I would welcome first nominations for the chair.
I, for the chair, would kindly ask Steve Bonder to serve as chair. Make a motion for that.
I'll second the motion.
Thank you. Any discussion? Further nominations?
I have a discussion item, though. Can I still call you Run Right, Steve?
I knew that was coming.
I'm sorry, I couldn't help myself.
All right, so why don't we do a roll call vote? Penn?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Nora?
Aye.
Divya?
Aye.
And I might as well. Thank you for your nomination and your trust, and we're going to have a wonderful fiscal 25-26 season. Thank you. Nominations for vice chair are now open. Do I hear any nominations?
I nominate Nora.
Oh, geez, I didn't know.
Oh, sorry. I didn't consult.
I would respectfully accept it. I thank you.
Second? I'll second that. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Penn,
Aye.
Paul,
Aye.
Divya?
Aye.
I am I as well. Nora,
Thank you.
congratulations. Awesome responsibility.
Did you vote for yourself, Nora?
Myself.
Can you put the agenda back? Thank you.
Stephen, did you vote for yourself?
Yes, I did.
Good for you. That's a sign of confidence.
Yes, and I would like
And
to,
yours is kind of
at this
modesty.
point, welcome our new committee members. Adam Nee, unfortunately could not be here tonight. He has a business commitment, but I'd like to welcome Divya and George. And Divya, if you wouldn't mind, maybe spend a minute or two telling us about yourself and why you've decided to be on the advisory committee,
2 whole minutes.
or 3 if you like.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm Divya Raghavan Malloy. I've lived here for 10 years. Known Penn for as long, I think. I've been involved with town things, but not officially for all these years. Volunteer everywhere that you can think of. I've been on the CSA. I have a 9-year-old in the school system in 3rd grade. Live on Western. And why did I decide to join the advisory is a tough question to answer. I guess it's my contribution to the greater good.
That remains to be seen.
I'm a little nervous, but I'm glad I'm here.
Well, we are as well.
That's
Thank
2.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you for serving.
Nice to have you.
George?
Nice to have you.
That's a tough act to follow, but I'll try. I'm George Pucci. I've lived in Sherborn like 100 years now. It seems like 26 years I go by my daughter's age. My daughter's 25. We've been here a little longer. And I had 3 kids. I went through the school system. I was in town government for a while with the Conservation Commission and then the Select Board for a little while. And I was also a Little League and Babe Ruth coach for another 100 years. And I just am willing and happy to serve the town. I've always respected the advisory committee greatly. I'm going to be kind of a novice on the financial expertise that you have, but hopefully I can, bring some perspective and both being an old guy and kind of remembering what it was like to be young and Sherborn and get all the perspectives. So hopefully I can help out.
Well,
It's great to be here.
we appreciate your willingness to be on the committee. Thank you.
Welcome.
George.
Thank you.
And George, so I'm Penn, by the way, Penn Young.
Hi, Ben.
How do you spell your last name?
Pucci.
Okay, just like the famous
I'm
Italian.
going to want to look at one of our sample meeting minutes. It seems like I should be the victim for the next meeting that when I'm sworn in, I'll do the minute.
Well, thank you. That's
Had to take
very
a-
kind of you. We'll put together a schedule.
Yeah, but it'll be helpful to know how detailed our customary practice is.
Yes, we try not to have a transcript of the meeting.
Yeah.
It's more in general
Great.
terms. By any chance, Jeremy, do you have a copy of the July minutes? As,
Let's see.
maybe Paul, if you have it in the email, we could,
I do. I have July 10th minutes,
okay.
the draft copy.
Would
you like to look at it?
Nora share her screen or how?
Oh, sure, yeah, if she'd like to. She needs to join the meeting first. Or I can look.
Or if you can find them.
Why don't I send it to you? Can I email it to you, Jeremy? And that might be easier. If I forward this to you?
Sure.
If you're doing that for me, we don't have to look at that now. I can just,
No, we got to approve, it's
Oh,
on there
okay.
to approve.
I just sent it to you, Jeremy.
Are there currently 9 members or are we still at 8?
We're at 8 currently,
Okay,
and the 9th is to be determined. Mike Giaimo has been working diligently to recruit people. So we appreciate your help, Michael. Thank you.
Still trying to get that 9th member.
We have full faith in
apart from double what we get.
jmarset@sherbornma.org.
Yeah.
Well, that's coming in. Why don't we look to see what the next thing is on the agenda? We'll come back to it.
To schedule.
It looks like it went through twice, Jeremy.
All right, so meeting attendance, do people have a preference about being in person? Do we want it to be totally Zoom? Last year, we had a preference of being in person. So I'd like to have input as to what people would like to do this year.
I personally like hybrid. Think it's good to be in person and offer hybrid for the community and also for people that might be in Florida.
Yeah, I think, if I understand, in-person only is not on the table. It's either all Zoom or hybrid are the options, and I'm for hybrid. I prefer in person, so.
Yeah, I think we found last year that when people were presenting budgets, that when they were done in person, it was a better back and forth. And the hybrid will enable the community to listen in as well and ask questions. So why don't we go keep that policy for the next, this coming year?
Do we need to vote on that?
I don't think so. It's just, a policy that we'll have. Yes.
Speaking about meetings, have there been any thoughts, Jeremy or Steve, on combining capital budget meetings? I think back in I don't know how many years, but before 3 years ago, they used to have it on the same evening for the budget makers to present both for capital budget and for us. Have you been
So
able
I'm
to
gonna
connect?
reach out to Peter Moores, the chair of the capital budget committee, and discuss it with him and get his input. See what
Okay.
he'd like to do. Because are there 3 members of that committee?
3, I'd love to see 5, but there are 3.
So it's 3 up to 5?
No, well, it's 3 right now. It would have to be a special town
It's on
meeting
bylaw.
bylaw for that.
Okay, so I'll reach out to him and see what his thinking is. It would be easier for the presenters to only have to do it twice, which would be to a combined group and then to the select board. But we'll see what he wants to do.
Thank you.
Make it easier for you too. As the liaison.
The minutes came through.
Good, okay, let's go to that. We'll go back to that. Thank you. Does anybody have comments on the draft minutes? Any corrections? I got yours and I'll make that change. Anybody else have any comments on that? George, this was a meeting that was of both the advisory committee and the select board to approve year-end transfers. And then, once that was done, the advisory committee started their own meeting. And there was just a general discussion on various matters. So as I say, we don't make this a transcript. It's some motions and then general discussion.
Yeah.
And if anybody wants to, they can watch the meeting. It's on Zoom and available.
Thanks.
Some attachments, Deb's attachments were added to these minutes. Thank you, Deb. Okay, so would anyone like to make a motion to accept those minutes, July 10th?
The edit that I sent you.
Is subject to your edit, yes.
Let me describe what it was.
Sure.
Right. The minutes said, I think, the committee addressed issues with the town meeting reconsideration process. And my recollection was, we had a discussion about it, but we didn't resolve anything. So the edit is just change address to discuss. That was a topic that we discussed.
Good, thank you.
Thanks.
Do I hear a motion to accept the July 10, 2025 minutes?
So moved.
Second?
No, second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none. Penn?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Nora?
Aye.
Divya?
Aye.
And I am I as well. Thank you.
Stephen, may I ask a question in addition to the question whether I can ask a question?
You can ask two.
Or I'm going to ask you, I'm sort of assuming you've not been sworn in, is that correct?
I have not been sworn in, so I'm not voting on anything.
That's what I thought, so thanks for clarifying that.
So Jeremy, can we pull up that schedule? So what I put together here, we go to the last page, page 3, I think it is. So here is a timeline of the process during the year. If you could just make that a little bit larger, then I can read it. One more time. So at the beginning of December and early December, fiscal 27 budgets are due to the town administrator and the finance director. From the period December 10 to the 21st, budget makers meet with the town administrator and the finance director. And December 31, budgets are transmitted to the select board and to the advisory committee. So by December 31, a first draft of the fiscal 27 budget will be circulated to the advisory committee. Then during the first quarter of 26, the advisory committee and the liaisons to the various budget makers will meet and go over their budget requests. There's no voting at this point yet. These are fact-finding discussions, both from the operating perspective and from the capital request perspective. On March 21, I'm proposing, which is a Saturday, that we have the public hearing, again, which the budget makers present. And this is the meeting where the advisory members vote either in favor of a article or no action on an article. And that public meeting will include both budget articles and any other article that's in the warrant for the town meeting, which could be any number of things. It could be a citizen's petition action, could be planning board articles, it could be any number of things. And then the annual town meeting is scheduled for April 28th, which is a Tuesday night. And that's when the members of the community will vote on each article. During, after March 21 and before April 28, I'm not sure how, 10 days before is the mailing of the report?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah. We'll put together a report and you can look on the website, the town's website, and see last year's report that the advisory committee put together. And generally speaking, the liaisons to the various budget makers would be writing the narrative for those particular articles. And whether you voted in favor or no action, you're welcome to write comments that are included in that report to the community. So that's kind of the overarching schedule. And if we go back to the first page, and I think I circulated this to the group.
Yes.
These are the proposed meeting dates and proposed agenda items for the meetings. And these are kind of going to be dependent on people's availability and timing, but this is generally what the schedule is. The October meetings, we'll have to see what comes up. Those are pretty open. We may only need one, we may have two. We'll just see how things go and what comes up. But this is what I would suggest that you kind of put in your calendar to anticipate as the meeting schedule. And we're going to try as best as possible to not have marathon meetings. We can discuss at our next meeting various ways that we think we can save on time and what will be easier for people making presentations. And these nights, these dates are generally Wednesday night, 7 p.m. Anybody have any questions on this scheduling? Okay, great. And you all have it. If you have any comments, just send them back to me and we'll figure out how to make it all work. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
Maybe we go back to the agenda. So I now would like to ask Jeremy to discuss his 2 agenda items for the evening.
Sure.
Thank you for putting the slide deck together. It's very informative and critical that we understand what the contents are, because this is going to be the basis of many of our discussions.
Sure. Thank you, Stephen. So I just put together some thoughts just to get you all in sort of budget preparation mode and give a summary as well of where you all left off last year with the FY26 budget, what considerations you might be thinking of as you're developing your FY27 budget, and talk about some of the overall finances of the town, and just quickly touch on capital budget as well as the operating budget. As far as a little background, as far as the different roles of staff and committees in the budget process, Sherborn does not have a town charter. So its government is governed by Mass General Law and a set of local bylaws. So the players involved would be the select board, which generally have, they're the chief executive officers of the community, though they don't have any specific budget role per se, other than some influence over the departments that they directly oversee. They are the chief policymakers, chief elected officials in the town. The town bylaws set the duties and authority of the town administrator, my position, to assist the select board, supervise department heads, help establish effective relationships with all the town boards, departments, committees, and commissions. And I do have some general responsibilities for town building maintenance and facilities maintenance, buildings, roadways, that sort of thing. Deb Seifring is our finance director and town accountant. Some of her duties are outlined in the town bylaws, helping to manage the cash flow of the town, reconciliation, regular audits, as she oversees the audit process, submissions to the Commonwealth, coordinates distributing financial information. She does regular reporting out to all of the department heads, and you all see that product as well, when she gives updates on the financial status of the budgets and capital projects. And the advisory committee, your committee, is established by the town bylaw. Your charge generally is to annually receive expenditure estimates from town boards, officers, and committees, the so-called budget makers. And you're required to hold a public hearing prior to town meeting. And then you report and advise town meeting on the budgets, capital requests, and all the town meeting warrant articles. And generally, the development of the town's budgets are governed by some town fiscal policies that were adopted by the select board and the advisory back in 2021. So those are sort of the guidance policies on budget considerations and different levels of stabilization funds and general finances of the town. This slide shows some of the general guiding principles from those fiscal policies. I'll just touch on a couple. The second one down, I think, is fairly important. Identify priority services, appropriate service levels, and administer the expenditure of resources to assure fiscal stability and efficient delivery of services. And there's a number of others. And all of these policies I'm happy to send to you, but they're also posted on the town's website. under town administration on the town's website, there's a page for the town finances. It includes, I think, the last 5 years of town budgets and sort of the budget development documents and guidance from advisory and the capital budget committee for all of those years. It includes the fiscal policies that I mentioned. There's a reserves policy as well that's posted there. Several of the past year's town audits, financial audits are also posted. So there's a whole bunch of information there. You should kind of browse and go through. But again, I'm happy to send you out any information you might want. As far as developing the budget, like I said, there's no town charter that specifically spells out how Sherborn develops its town budget. So it's generally up to all of us collectively how we want to go about that each year. It's what Stephen's laid out as far as a calendar and a schedule generally follows what the process that was done last year, where advisory discusses and sets some budget guidance and then provides that to the budget makers. And then Deb and I help compile and work with the budget makers to compile an overall compiled budget, a roll-up summary budget. We also meet with the budget makers ahead of publishing the budget to get additional context. And then for your benefit, we publish that roll-up budget with a budget summary letter, I think sometime in December is where the calendar has that lie. But in your guidance letter that you'd be issuing out to the budget makers, you'd include that schedule and sort of a summary of what you'd anticipate the budget makers to follow as far as submissions, when, what, and your guidance. Let's see. So here's the current fiscal year budget. That was approved at last town meeting in the spring. So this is FY26, the current budget that we're operating under. And generally that was about a 3.5% increase from the prior year. This was as a result of all the meetings that advisory had last year and the recommendations and what was approved at town meeting. Some of the more significant increases were from the Middlesex County Retirement had a fairly sizable increase. Generally, that's about a 6% increase per year based on fully funding the pension requirement. But last year there was also, in addition to that, there was a one-time COLA adjustment that had to be funded. So that ended up being a larger increase than normal. There were some one-off school budget savings that did help mitigate some of the school increases. Those may not translate into FY27. We were fortunate to have a manageable health insurance increase for employees and retirees of 6%. That was much lower than many other communities had that year. The average that we were hearing out in the other communities was about 10 to 12%. And our insurance carrier is suggesting that we budget for 12% increases for the foreseeable future. So that will be a stress on your budgets going forward. To offset the expenditures, the town raised revenue, mostly by way of the property tax levy. That accounts for the vast majority of the revenues the town of Sherborn receives. It's common or pretty similar to other communities or similar communities where, mostly single-family residential properties pay for the tax burden. The two other major sources of revenue are local receipts. Those are like fees and auto excise taxes that are charged. And the third and smallest budget component for revenues is state aid. State aid increased about 2% last year. It's not likely to be any more than that for FY27. If anything, it may be slightly less. And that's all dependent on what the state sees for revenues. I have this highlighted up here. So to fund the budget, the property tax levy, and on average, you could kind of roll this out, on average, property taxes went up about 3.4% for folks around town to fund the budget. This is where the municipal expenditures are what they fund. About 60% goes towards education or the schools, the regional schools and the local schools. A quarter goes to public safety, public works, and general town government. And then a little less than a quarter goes to insurance, that may be health insurance for employees and retirees, property insurance for town properties, and other benefits. And then there's debt and interest on the town's debt that it's borrowed to undertake capital projects. And those insurance and benefits and debt and interest are attributable both to the municipal side of the budget and the school side of the budget. Approximately 45% of insurance and debt go to the schools or attributable to the schools, and 55% to the town. All of the Pine Hill Elementary School educators and staff receive insurance benefits through the town of Sherborn's benefits. The regional school system has their own benefit group. So for FY27 coming up, likely your percentage of expenditures is going to be quite similar to this. This is pretty much what it's been for Sherborn for a number of years, and is not likely to change drastically year over year. One thing we have to keep in mind when you're developing your budget is Proposition 2.5. This is a little summary on what that means for budgeting. Proposition 2.5 has been in existence for a while in the Commonwealth, and it helps limit year-over-year increases to property taxes. And the way it does that is that each year you have to calculate a levy limit, and your budget needs to be within that levy limit, or a specific approval needs to be voted by the town at town meeting and the ballot box to do an override to go above that levy limit. And the way that levy limit is calculated is you take the prior year's levy limit, you add 2.5%, that's where the Prop 2.5 comes from. So you add 2.5% increase, and then you add what's called new growth. New growth is sort of an expansion of your tax base. It's a new building. It's something that's could be newly taxable. It's a significant improvement on an existing structure that makes it more valuable and hence has more expand your tax base. Sherborn's new growth has been relatively modest compared to its peers, meaning there are other like communities that see more of an increase in new growth. They have more development that occurs that helps them have a larger new growth number, and hence helps them with their levy limit. $240,000 is about an average of what Sherborn has seen over the years for new growth. To add those two together, the 2.5 increase, the new growth, and you come up with a levy limit. You add debt exclusions. Those are things that have funded town capital. Debt exclusions are specific votes at town meeting and at the ballot that exempt the debt for these capital borrowings from the levy limit. That's why in this calculation for Sherborn, you must add in that debt exclusion that's approved, and that's where you come up with your maximum allowable levy. And then the actual property tax levy is based on what the budget was approved at town meeting. So in the case of FY26 at town meeting, the levy of $32,219,586 was needed to fund the budget. So subtracting what you needed to fund the budget from the maximum allowable levy gives you what's called an excess levy capacity. So that excess levy capacity is something that is there but not utilized. And once that excess levy capacity goes to zero, then your year-over-year budgeting would be driven by the 2.5% increase plus new growth, or the town would need to approve an operating override. So Sherborn is fortunate to have excess levy capacity. However, that excess levy capacity has been shrinking year over year. So it's been a metric that we've been monitoring and keeping an eye on.
And what happens if it's not approved?
If what's not approved?
If the overrides are not approved?
If an override is not approved, then
I know the answer, but
depends how it's presented at town meeting. So if an alternate budget is approved at town meeting and the override is not passed at the ballot, then that alternate budget might be approved. If not, there are mechanisms. Essentially, you're limited by Prop 2.5.
so does the state?
Without an operating
I just like.
override, you have to stay within your means.
Okay, I just want to
But
kind of like explain that as
specifics on how
a
that
grader.
will now depend on how the budget is presented and approved at town meeting. If there's an alternate budget available, should the ballot not pass.
Quick question, on the new growth, is that growth that occurred through June 30, 25, the property to be assessed in fiscal 26?
Yes, so there is a municipal budgeting does have sort of a lag, but yes, it's for a fiscal year. And a lot of things in municipal budget are based on the prior fiscal year and the close.
When will we know what that actual number is, with that estimate of 240 is, when will we know what the actual is?
Soon. So there's a process the assessing office will go through, working with the building department, looking at all the building permits that were issued and closed.
Yeah.
And there's a process they coordinate together to come up with that value, which has started. It might be a little more delayed this year, and that we have a vacancy in our chief assessor. So that might be a little more delayed than normal, but we would know that going into the fall. Deb has also submitted all the financials for the close of FY25, which helps and will determine and it's a later slide here, but what the town's free cash number is. That'll be certified in the coming month.
So those bills are somewhat delayed until the assessor is in place.
Not the property tax bills won't be delayed, no, but some of the other work of the assessor's office will be a little more delayed, yes.
Will bills be, so is there currently a significant lag in new construction additions and so on being assessed and therefore not being assessed and therefore not yet hitting the tax rolls?
No, there's not, no.
Okay.
That new growth number that's up here is related to FY27, which doesn't start until next July 1st. So there's no impact on assessed taxes as a result of just some delay in calculating what we're going to forecast the new growth number to be.
Stephen, may I make an observation? So when we're talking about revenue, then I'm bringing this up because it was something that I didn't realize before I joined advisory and actually learned. And we talk about the town raising revenues, that's accurate phraseology, but it can be, I think, for the layman a bit misleading. The town does not have any money to spend. The town votes on what money it's going to spend, and taxes are raised to meet that planned expenditure.
Correct.
It's not like we have a pot of money and we're divvying it up. It's like we're deciding what we're going to spend, and then taxes are raised, or taxes are raised whether or not the tax rate is raised in order to meet that spending.
That's correct. Yeah. So town meeting approved the FY26 budget back in April, right? The funding for that will be assessed through FY '26. So that amount of money will be raised, and that's what they call it, will raised through mostly property taxes and assessed. So that's what you'll see, on your preliminary tax bills, and then as they become firmer, as the quarters go on.
And for clarification, town meeting was the approval to put it on the ballot. So it really was raised technically at the ballot box.
For capital, well, your operating budget didn't go to the ballot box because it
Okay.
did not need an override. So it was within the limits of Prop 2.5. So your operating budget was approved at town meeting.
Okay, so operating,
The
Yes.
capital budgets that were debt exclusions, those had to then get subsequently approved at the ballot.
and then with the new growth that it's 240, have you done analysis going back, like say, last 10 years or 5 years?
Yes.
What new growth was actual versus projected?
Yeah.
Did they match up more or less?
Fairly good. I mean, it is generally a conservative number. Generally, new growth comes in a little bit higher than what's forecast.
Okay,
It's better that way than the other way.
all right, thank you.
So to build on that, here's a chart of the excess levy capacity for Sherborn since 2021. So it's current, where that blue arrow is current, that's where we are today. That's FY '26, the current budget year. You can see the excess levy capacity peaked in fiscal '22. Sorry that the numbers are a little small, but that was about 1.6 million. And then since then, it's been in a fairly steady decline down to FY '26, the current fiscal year we're in. We do have a budget model, and I'll go into a little bit more detail as far as the assumptions that I plugged into the budget model. But there are two larger items that we need to plan for. One, the health insurance costs for employees and retirees, and two, the additional costs for regional emergency dispatch. So we know those are two numbers that are fairly large that we need to plan for. So I've plugged those into the budget model, and then made an assumption that municipal budgets would go up 3% and school budgets 4%, and calculated the excess levy capacity, and that's what you see on the far right. You see, currently FY '26, we have excess levy capacity of 762,000. Based on the assumptions I just mentioned, the excess levy capacity would drop in '27 to 454,000. Good news is that it's still a positive number. Bad news is it's dropping again. And those are some gross assumptions based on some educated guesses, but as the budget process goes on, that'll get much more further refined. Based on those assumptions, we may not be looking at an override situation for FY '27. This is just another way of looking at budget increase. These are a graph of the budget increases year over year from FY '21 to '27. This past year, as I mentioned, FY '26 was a 3.5% increase. The assumptions that I put in the model churn back about a 4.3% increase in budgets for FY '27. That's why the excess levy capacity dropped a bit more than it had between '25 and '26 in that prior graph. For FY '27, here are just some thoughts to keep in mind. Health insurance, as I mentioned, regional emergency dispatch. The share of the cost of that for emergency, the regional dispatch, we're in it's a multi-year contract. We're towards the end of this contract, and the subsidy from the Commonwealth is shrinking, and the share that the town has to pick up is increasing. So I believe our share next year will go up to a little over $200,000. This past budget cycle, we had in $80,000. So It's a fair increase this next year as far as the share that the town of Sherborn would need to pick up. The year in 2028, if no additional funding is provided by the Commonwealth, then Sherborn would have to carry the full cost, which is a little over $300,000
Can
per
you
year.
explain to the public what emergency dispatch is?
Sure, it's if you call 911, you get an operator, that's the dispatch center. And we use a dispatch center in Holbrook that's shared by a number of communities. So prior to that, we had dispatchers at the police station behind Town Hall here. It was a challenge to fill those positions, and the suited police officers were manning the desk instead of being out on patrol. So analysis was done, and we joined the regional dispatch. There's been a lot of benefits to that. Some operating savings and a significant amount of capital as well. But now Sherborn has had to pay more and more of its share of the cost.
So it's going to 300.
Eventually it would be, I think, 360,000 per year. I believe we'll be looking at a little over 200,000 for FY27.
To replace a 24/7 person at the desk.
Multiple folks, yeah. You couldn't just have one person.
Well, I know, I'm just
But yeah,
not a person, but a position.
position people, yes.
Thank you. I'd just like to clarify.
And we're optimistic that the state 911 system will provide some additional grant funding and make it more permanent so that there is grant funding towards it. But we can't plan on that because it's not known yet.
Okay. Thank you.
Other considerations of maybe smaller but may have some budget impact. Continued consideration of sharing staff amongst the finance department and land use. There are a couple vacancies that we're looking at sharing amongst departments. There's a new vacancy in the Conservation Commission administrative assistant, just recently left. It's an opportunity to reconsider that position and see if that would be better shared amongst some of the land use departments. The assessing department, we have a vacancy in the chief of assessing. We're hopeful that we'll be working with the town of Holliston to share assessing staff services, but that's a work in progress. And their timeline is different than ours since they have a fully functional assessing department and ours is short-staffed. It's not as much of an urgency for them, but we're hopeful that we can develop an IMA and to share services with Holliston and make it a mutually beneficial arrangement. Our town clerk, Jackie Morris, retired, so we have a vacancy there that we're looking to fill. Every year there's a quote, a COLA adjustment for non-union employees. It's the personnel board will make a recommendation to advisory, and then you would include that in your budget guidance. So that's a budget consideration. It's an open collective bargaining agreement with a police union that's currently under negotiation. That will have an impact to FY26, the current fiscal year, and for FY27, once that's settled. And for FY27, the educators, the teachers union will have a new contract or be close to having a new contract for that. That's, I think they're in the third year of their 3-year agreement. Ben? Okay.
May I ask a question?
Sure, yeah.
Okay, so looking at this, and so is there an active discussion about creating a land use office administrator, folding in the roles from Board of Health, Concom, and creating somebody to centralize that?
Not in like a director role, not in a senior role yet. I mean, it's an idea. The opportunity just arose for the administrative assistant for Concom. She just recently left to work for another community. And that position now being vacant is the opportune time to reconsider its role. But that's an administrative assistant position, not a senior position.
But aren't there, I mean, there are a couple of, Board of Health has administrative assistant as well.
Yes.
And the other, and planning and,
Planning does not have an
Does not have
administrative
one.
assistant. Building, our chief building official does not have an administrative assistant. Conservation has a part-time administrative assistant. And the Board of Health has a separate part-time administrative assistant, two different people.
so I wasn't thinking of somebody at a supervisory level, but just merging the administrative assistants and expanding that person's purview to planning, building, maybe town planner. Is that under
Yeah,
consideration?
that's what I think we would like to consider and have those conversations. It just recently came up as an opportunity, so
Yeah, they're
having
all
the
the same.
conversations with the Conservation Planning Board and the Building Office, since generally those all fall under the Select Board or the Planning Board, those conversations can happen.
I think we should not get into too much detail
Yeah.
at this point. We're just trying for an overview, so maybe we should move on.
Yeah, my apologies, Stephen.
Sure. As far as expenses, the other ones are relatively minor. Well, the education I mentioned, the school committees will present to you budgets for the regional school, your share of the regional schools, and for the local elementary school. Both of those budgets did benefit from one-time cost savings for FY '26, which may not translate into FY '27. Water treatment operating costs will incrementally increase some of the facilities maintenance costs. That'll be for the maintaining the water treatment that will be going into this building for PFAS treatment. And we'll continue consolidation of the IT budget. Things to look at there are consolidated permitting system. Many of our offices use their own permit system and spreadsheets, and it's not really cohesive. So we may be looking at something more holistic for all, one platform for all. And you'll want to continue to fund your stabilization funds. So just some at this point, some potential budget pressures for FY '27. As far as the current fiscal year, FY '26, there is some stress on the fire department budget for maintenance of their equipment. So their equipment maintenance line is being stressed and may require a reserve fund transfer. And we've been directed by Mass DEP to remove a water storage tank at Pine Hill Elementary School. It's sort of a surge tank that helps with the pressure. It's grossly oversized, it's old, it's affecting the water quality there. So as a public water system, Mass DEP has regulatory authority and they're requiring us to have that removed. So we need to get that designed and out to bid such that we can have a capital request for the annual town meeting. But that design and study of that removal, it's a lot harder than just removing a big tank. The current estimate for design is $40,000. So that is not in a budget and may likely require a reserve fund transfer to fund so that we'll have either a bid in hand or very firm numbers for town meeting for the actual work.
Could you repeat that number again?
$40,000 for design. It seems on the surface to be relatively simple, but apparently it's a lot more complicated. Like that's some stress on the FY '26 budgets. What else did I have? By way of the fiscal health of Sherborn, there's several metrics that are out there. When the town borrows, its debt is rated by S&P, and that was we just did a debt issuance, and as a result of that debt was rated, and it came back AAA on the highest rating, affirming past ratings for Sherborn, which is great. In no small part because of the reserves that the town has in hand. One of those types of reserves is called free cash. It's not free and it's not cash. They give it, It's sort of uncommitted reserves. It's what's left over at the end of a fiscal year, and it must be certified by the Commonwealth. All the numbers Deb has put in, and we don't know what they're going to certify, what the number will come back to be certified, but it's likely to be similar as last year. Just leave it at that, which is a healthy number. Free cash can be used for various things, any lawful purpose. It can be appropriated for, it requires appropriation. Typically, Sherborn has used it to fund cash-funded capital items.
So there is the suggestion, best practice is not to use free cash for operating expenses.
Correct, yeah, that many communities would look at that as a structural budget deficit. That free cash really is considered a one-time source of funds. It's not sustainable. So using that to offset your budget is really it's a structural budget deficit.
Band-Aid.
Yeah, it's a Band-Aid. You may not have as much some year as you might expect, and then you're in dire straits. So it's very appropriate to use for one-time purchases like capital or to fund stabilization accounts.
So the free cash in another sense is the accumulated excess of revenue over expenses over periods of time.
Correct. Yeah, it's a good summary. The town also has other forms of reserves and stabilization accounts, which the minimum levels of funding are sort of governed by the guidance, the fiscal policy guidance that I mentioned earlier. That guidance says that the stabilization fund should have a 2%, should be funded have a balance of 2% of the operating budget with a target of 3%. And that free cash should be at least 3% with a target of 5%. And the balances that you have available in free cash and in the stabilization accounts are in excess of that. I'd suggest that those numbers actually in your financial guidance are a little dated and maybe increased. So at some point in the near future, advisory and the select board should review the financial policies. It's a good practice to update them regularly. I'd suggest that those percentages be increased a bit based on what we heard from S&P during the last debt rating. But in general, the town is in a sound financial position. So that's really the operating budget. Just a quick summary of the capital budget is a slide of what was approved at the last town meeting and at the ballot box for overrides. The overrides, the debt exclusions are the ones with the asterisks. But these were all approved and funded, and many are well underway. So $3.6 million in capital was approved for FY26. Every year we've been updating a 5-year plan, a lookout of 5 years. And then, in the more recent years, we'll get more fine-tuned and really put together a strong case for, the current year that we're asking for. In that 5-year plan, which has not yet been updated, but in the 5-year plan for FY27, here's a list of projects budget makers have put forward. All told, that's a $4.3 million capital request in total for FY27. Some of the bigger numbers there being regional schools, additional HVAC projects, the Pine Hill School roof, and then on the municipal side, roadway management, stormwater management, and the Farm Pond stormwater and access improvements. Just a brief summary on what was anticipated last year to be asked for at FY27. So that's what I have for you.
Excellent. Thank you. It's a lot of information to digest. Thank Thank you. We're lucky to have you at the helm.
A lot of people on the ship helping steer, so.
Yes, and Deb, thank you for your
Many
role
folks
in this
support
too. So if you go back to that previous page on the capital budget, where was the pickleballs, the tennis court thing? Can't see it. Yeah, so that ended up being 6 something, I think. Just do you want to update the presentation? Excellent.
Oh, that was changed from the advisory report.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
I'll update the slides to be back more accurate.
And just to point out for folk that these are the net numbers that the town expends. For example, roadway management, we get grants from the state. So that's what we spend is a larger number, but there's a bunch of grants in there that don't appear on the operating side. When you see grants as a percentage of revenue coming in, it's a separate number. So there's probably $800,000 or $900,000 worth of grants on this.
Associated with these, yes.
Yeah.
We received a grant for $100,000 towards the PFAS treatment, town campus, $100,000 for the Woodhaven water project. Chapter 90, which is the roadway grants received from the Commonwealth. Deb, what's that number? Chapter 90?
335?
Yeah, it's like 335. That will be higher next year. That actually has just got a 50% increase for FY '27. So that will impact what we may request for FY '27.
And then there was an item for a study on the municipal buildings and the schedule for maintenance.
Yeah.
Has that been started yet?
That has been started, yes. That's underway. That's under contract with On-Site Insight. And they've done inspections of most of the buildings. So the results should be available relatively soon.
Okay, good. So that will impact the fiscal '27 capital budget. Good. We need to keep ahead of the maintenance. We don't want repairs. Any questions for Jeremy? Nora?
The status of Jameson Field, like the 100,000 that was borrowed, where is that? Just
For
on hold right now, the baseball?
Renovation, yeah, that's on hold as far as.
On hold?
The money's in town accounts, but there's no contract in place to expend it.
So do you have to make a vote to get it replaced, or do you just leave it
It will
out
sit
there?
there until it's used for its intended purpose or until town meeting reappropriates it.
Okay. And also for roadway maintenance that we voted in last year, if some things didn't get done, like I just happen to know because I live on Woodland Street, but my side is done. But the other side, that was on the agenda to get done, but it hasn't been, so how does
That work
that?
will be starting up in a couple of weeks.
Oh, it will be, okay, all right, so that'll go. Fine, okay. What do you recommend about Jameson Field for 100? Is that not worth taking
The
it in and
Recreation
out?
Commission has plans to utilize that. I think that got shuffled around in priorities, but that would be a better question for them as far as their planned use, when and how to use, so.
But we are paying interest on it, but that doesn't,
The money was borrowed, yes.
okay.
On the new borrowing that was just done by the treasurer, that rate was about 5%?
Yes,
That was-
effective rate was a bit lower, but yeah.
Was that a bit higher than?
It was, we had a big response. Bond counsel said that we had, there was a lot of bidders and that it was a competitive bid, and our debt is attractive. So they thought that was a good rate for the
And it was
market.
short term too. It was probably, most of the life of that stuff was 10 years or less probably.
Right, I think it was a 10-year borrowing altogether.
Yeah, it was 10 years.
So with that 100,000, not that I'm trying to hyper focus on that, but are we creating interest on that in terms of like in a savings account or a separate account? I mean, are we just paying interest, and is that kind of
The money
waste of
sits
money?
somewhere and it is making some funds, but
To hopefully offset what we're paying?
to the extent that it can, yes.
The treasurer is very good.
Some
about-
limitations on it, arbitrage, you can't borrow public funds to invest, so it has to, those funds have to be in specific type accounts that do accrue interest, but may or may not offset the interest rate of the borrowing.
The government is
Yeah.
supposed to lose money.
Currently, it's pretty close. We're paying as much interest as we're making. It's
Okay.
very close at this point in
Right,
time.
thank you.
And when the interest rates change, that might change, but right now it's pretty close.
Thank you.
Jeremy, thank you. That was an excellent presentation. We appreciate it. All right, can we go back to the agenda page? Thank you. If memory serves, it was probably committee member reports.
Yes, that's it.
Yeah, thank you. Paul, did you have a report that
Yes,
you
I
wanted
do.
to present?
Yes. I'm currently the liaison for the school committees. So I have two reports, one for the Sherborn School Committee, which is Pine Hill. And for end of fiscal year 25 ending in June, they had a total operating surplus of $163,000, which is good news-ish, right? There was a salary surplus and so on. And what happened was, and this became before the advisory too, there was work at the Pine Hill School where there was HVAC work being done on the library and the cafeteria. And at the same time, the select board asked them to get a quote from the same contractor to install a ventilation system in the high school auditorium. And that actually came before advisory as well, and everyone was interested in having that come in, right? So that change order cost was $155,000, and the select board approved of that from the surplus. So net then, the Sherborn School Committee had a net operating surplus of just over $8,000, which I think goes into free cash. Yeah, right. Right. So it's kind of a positive-ish thing, right? Then for the regional school committee, this is the middle school and high school shared with Dover. They also had a net operating surplus of about $660,000, right? And there, the story is a bit different because with that surplus, there was use of E&D, which is the unspent prior year cash, right? That the regional school committee approved to part that to be spent for this fiscal year 26 operating budget. That was $175,000. And they also voted to approve $350,000 to go towards a turf field renovation. So that left over a net surplus of $134,000, which goes to their excess and deficiency, essentially their fund of unspent cash.
Their version of free cash.
Right. So that's all overall positive-ish. I don't know how much that will translate into this year's budget, but last year the budget was positive for both the school committees.
Excellent. Thank you.
I can forward you the Word doc of this pen to make it easier for your notes.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Any other committee reports?
Well, as Jeremy pointed out with the fire department, there's something with an undercarriage, and then we got another quote, so that was good news because one was suggesting a total replacement. I think it was engine 3.
Yeah.
Going off my memory.
Yeah.
But then he got another quote up on the North Shore, Woburn or something, for doing some repairs to that, significant repairs, but not the cost of an engine. So, and their calls, that includes I want to say dispatch now, it's in my head, but the regional help.
Oh, yes.
Mutually, thank you, I just had dispatch in my head. They're up from last year, but a little bit, but it's been, they've been doing a great job. And as you also mentioned about the assessor's office, they have about 50, I think, in process or to be assessed on building permits. So to, bring in that extra for the assessed values, I would assume.
And one thing I guess I didn't mention about the assessor's office, we have contracted with some consultants to help fill the gap in that skill set. in the interim, until we figure out a sharing arrangement with Holliston. So
Yeah,
we
great.
have professionals helping us, consultants helping us, one, to review all those building permits and
Mhm.
to help develop that new growth number. So
Right.
When is the revaluation due?
I mean, every year it needs to be adjusted, but it's not a revaluation year this year. Is it next year? Might be next year. I think it's next year because we're going to update the CAMA system as the software that has all the assessing information, but they didn't want to do it on a reval year, which would have been next year.
Anything else?
Nothing from capital budget since we have not had a meeting, so we're waiting to hear about the next meeting for that.
Any other committee member reports? Okay, hearing none, do I hear a motion to adjourn?
I'd like to add into next month's or either next meeting or the following meeting
Okay,
to discuss, maybe have the moderator here, Jeremy, and just kind of go over the advisory and rule of, conflict of interest violations, reporting, so to speak. I'd also like to talk about something that came up after town meeting, the town meeting, a handbook of parliamentary law. That's a Kindle book that could have several meetings within the town meeting. So you could close a meeting for example, like a big item for, like, say, the turf field, for example, that people would vote on it, then they would close that meeting to, help it not have a midnight call on, vote to reconsider. So if we could, I don't know if that really is having the select board, but I think it would be worth talking about it, but I don't know if that's really in our purview here, but I think it's something to bring to the attention. We spoke about it, I think, at last meeting.
What was that to help bring clarity to calls for reconsideration?
Yes.
Town meeting?
Apparently
Some
other
framework
towns,
for that.
according to this, I believe you can have like several meetings within a town meeting. And this is specific for, if this Kindle book is specific for Massachusetts. It's, that's what other towns have done for, big ticket items, so to speak, capital items in particular.
Yeah, there's some overlap with, the warrant, town meeting warrant is set by the select board. And then town meeting is run by the moderator, so, and then advisory gives recommendations. So, yeah, there's some overlap on those various bodies during that discussion.
I think it would be an interesting discussion to have.
okay, noted, thank you. Anything else? Motion to adjourn,
So moved.
second?
Second?
Penn?
Aye.
Paul?
Aye.
Nora?
Aye.
Divya?
Aye.
And I am I as well. Meeting is adjourned at 8:19 PM. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Night.
Good night.